I'm Erica Bennett, and I'm an anchor reporter for Action News Jacksonville, and this is another day at the office. That is a very loaded question. Erica Bennett is multifaceted. I have many interests, many passions. I'm a wife, I'm a Christian, I'm a journalist. I would say I'm a social activist, if you will. I certainly always speak up about injustice and things that I see are wrong in my community and beyond. I am a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm emotional sometimes. I can't make up my mind oftentimes, but I'd like to think I'm a pretty good friend, and I lend myself to whoever needs it. I hail from Dallas, Texas, the great and wonderful state of Texas. Yes, I am a Cowboys fan. I'm very proud of where I'm from. I grew up in a suburb in Dallas. Very fortunate to have both of my parents in my life and go to a really good school district. So I got all the stuff you can imagine in high school, the student councils and the field trips, and played sports and all of that. And I think it helped shape me for college because I was well-rounded in a lot of areas before I even stepped foot on a university campus. So it's good, and I go home as often as I can. Unfortunately, it's not too often. It's 1,000 miles away from Jacksonville, but I get there when I can, and I will always rep Texas, yes, even though I'm in Florida. When I graduated high school, I went off to the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. It was a big culture shock. I went from a very diverse suburb and a well-rounded suburb, people who are, urban, cool, have progressive thinking, to the middle of like cornfields in Missouri. It was a mostly white school, and it was a culture shock in many areas. I had people who had literally never gone to school with minorities, never been around minorities, and so there was some, I don't want to say issues there, but kind of insensitive comments and things that I had to adjust to the first year or so. So I did that. I graduated in 2008 and then took my first job outside of college at the NBC station in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was there for 2 years, and then after that, I went back home to Dallas for a little bit as I was applying jobs and trying to figure out where I wanted to go next, and then came to Jacksonville in 2010. So it's been a crazy journey in Jacksonville, I can tell you that, because I had a 2-year contract, which is how TV stuff usually operates. You're on a contract for a period of time. And so I had a 2-year contract as a reporter. My boss at the time convinced me to re-sign for a 3rd year, which took me up to, I think, 2013. And then I was like, you know what, nothing's keeping me in Jacksonville. I love the beach, but I'm homesick. I'm ready to go to a bigger market. So I moved back home to Dallas in 2013. Met my now husband a week before I moved. And so I came back to Jacksonville 5 months later because we had a new regime here, new management, all new style here at the station. And so when I got a chance to come back in 2014, I helped launch our now weekend morning show. And so expanded my role from reporter to anchor reporter. And now I've got a chance to really get involved more in the community. So Jacksonville is a part of me in a lot of areas and always will be. Had a bunch of challenges. I'm a perfectionist and type A personality just by my nature, and so I want to feel in control of a lot of stuff, and many people know things aren't in your control. God runs it all, at least that's my belief. And then sometimes you just have challenges maybe from decisions and choices that you make, or just naturally the flow of life. And so in college, I certainly had challenges. At the time, I had kind of like this love and basketball dream. My high school sweetheart, he went there to play basketball, and so I was thinking it was going to be like a happily ever after situation. That was not the case. He went, at the time, Missouri was a Big 12 school, it's now in the SEC, so he went and was big time, and the whole team was just feeling themselves, and so he was off doing whatever he wanted to do, and I was a sweet little housewife, like in the college dorm, cooking and studying, and going to bed at 11 o'clock, like doing everything I was supposed to do. That was the example that I had from my parents who've been married over 35 years, and so that's what I just thought you did. And so, unfortunately, I wasted a lot of time and a lot of growth by trying to make something work that clearly wasn't going to work for various reasons. And so I regret that in college. I don't think I got into enough social settings. I clearly should have dated other people. So I learned those lessons years after the fact. It did affect my grades for a couple semesters. I was really down and kind of depressed about it. My self-esteem was low because of it. So I had to regroup and revamp. I actually originally went as a psychology major to college, but then I changed it to journalism. So I started as one thing and turned out to be a journalist. And so it's a very tedious career. And at the University of Missouri, it was the first journalism journalism school in the country and arguably the best in the country. So it was very hard. We had to study a lot, and we had to be on air successfully in Market 137, which was the Columbia Jefferson City market, which is the capital of Missouri. We had to broadcast to thousands of people in college, and people could fail it if you weren't good. So I had to learn by fire. If you were good, everybody saw that you were good. If you sucked, everybody saw that you sucked. So that's what helped train me as far as perfectionism and doing things the right way. I failed 2 college math classes and almost didn't start my major in time because I'm a journalism major and math is hard for me. And so I had to sacrifice pledging to be in a sorority online one semester so that I could go to a night school to take college algebra so I could start my major on time. So I really had the crossroads of social versus doing what you have to do academically and beyond, so that you can be set up later. And so I made that decision. And again, I think those things helped grow me for where I am now. And so it has been difficult in the sense that I've had to move around the country. I've had to meet people and then say goodbye to them. I've had to go back to Dallas twice to regroup for a couple of months. My parents allowed me to do so. But yeah, I've had some up and down periods. I've thought about getting out of television some years ago. I was like, maybe I want to do nonprofit, maybe I want to do something else. I want to change the world. And you know, news is frustrating and political and all these things that I didn't know would be. But I got back in it, and you know, here I am. Andrew Young, very famous civil rights leader and activist and former mayor of Atlanta, he told me a month before I moved back to Dallas, and I was in a crossroads, I'll never forget it. He asked a lot about me, and I have no idea why he took to me in this interview, but he did. We were able to shoot the breeze down in St. Augustine, and he said, you know, I can see like the hand of God on you, like I can see that. He said, you know, you can make a difference, you can change the world, like you can't get out of TV, that's not an option, like you have to do your part. And so I took that in stride, and he was absolutely right. And so since I went through that, should I get out to return to television and have an even bigger platform, now anchoring and doing more stuff in the community, I see what he means. And so for me, each and every day that I step out, everything that I do that people see on social media, it's not an act. I truly believe that my impact goes hand in hand, not just here in the studio with journalism, but also in the community and the girls that I help and the people that I encourage and the wisdom or the articles or the knowledge that I spread to people. It's all part of a bigger picture, and I take that very seriously. I know that each and every day, and so it's one of those things, it's like you're in it and you know you have to do it and you have to keep doing it. So that's kind of where I am now. It is challenging, it is tiring, it is time consuming, but it's worth it. I had to really find my style. So in college, I think we all started out the same, and I had a CNN analyst at a convention tell me this one year. She's like, you have a bubbly personality, you have a great personality, let it show. We all started as, hi, I'm a reporter and I'm serious and I have this stone face and I can't smile and I can't do anything because I have to be like Tom Brokaw and just have to be this just monotone reporter. And so I had to get out of that after the CNN analyst told me that. And so I realized like it's okay to be relaxed sometimes on some stories. It's okay to smile. It's okay to joke. So I see opportunities where I can smile and let my personality shine through. Sometimes it can be a little sister girl on some stories, or it's something that I can relate to. Like I had to read Lil Boosie the other day on the air, and so I wanted to laugh so bad, but you know, I knew who he was. I worked in Louisiana. Everybody know who, you know, so I find ways to let stories breathe. There are some crime stories, there are some things that are absolutely horrible, but I find areas where maybe the cute kid, you know, did something that went viral, I'll find a way to smile about it. Or if it's something about a dog, I can relate to my new puppy struggle or something like that. So it's a ever-changing style. It's an ever-changing flow. But one thing I will say as far as consistency, I try to always be sensitive to the story. I try to look for both sides. So for example, if somebody just got gunned down by the cops and most people's reaction is, well, he deserved it, he was a thug, he was this, I try to see, well, did the mom say something that we didn't mention? Did he like play the guitar or something? Was he aspiring to do this and just maybe got down the wrong path? You know, what is fair in this story? What is a way I can share what I know and bring it to the public so that they can make a balanced and hopefully fair decision? Because what I've realized as a journalist, a lot of people have stereotypes and judgments very quickly on both sides. This person's a racist, this person's a bad cop, this person's a thug, this person is this. And my goal is to find something kind of in the middle and to always let people know there's two sides to everything. Don't be so quick to judge. You know, by the grace of God, we're not in this situation where we feel like we have to steal or rob or do whatever, or that we have to try to cross a border, whether it's legally or illegally or whatever the case. And so I think that shows sometimes in social media and everything that I do, and I just try to be consistent with it. I mean, it is a reflection of my heart and what I truly believe as a person, as, you know, as a Christian, as a woman of compassion. But I realize that makes a big difference as a journalist, because what we say helps portray public perception. And so every word is important. And my thing is, yeah, sometimes I do get a little bit emotional and I have to pull myself back. And, my parents will let me know, hey, okay, you're a little bit too one-sided. Or, my husband or somebody say, hey, just bring it back just a little bit. But I try to show all sides. So that's the style I try to prove every day and show to everybody. It's hard. Being a journalist is hard enough. And I think that current events, current language, current rhetoric proves that. We're under attack now more than ever. The freedom of press, the freedom of democracy via journalism has been under attack a lot lately. So first of all, that's hard. A lot more people who all of a sudden are political experts are doubting everything we say, even though we have a very serious process with everything that we do. A lot of people don't realize this, but there are several eyes and several layers of approval for everything before it gets on the air. We're not just making stuff up and coming on here and reading it as an anchor or reporting it in the field. Everything is approved. And there are safeguards and things in place that say, well, did you make sure this was confirmed? Did you make sure you have multiple sources that are valuable, that are credible, that are this, and this? So that in itself is hard. We're having to make sure we do double time and overtime to make sure that things that have never been doubted before make sense. 99.9% of journalists tell the truth and do it well and have an ethics and code and obligation morally to spread the truth, share the story, and that's it, and let people at home decide. So that's hard. Being a woman of color and a journalist is hard because there's been a lot of racial type stories in the news lately that you can't get around. I do find myself sometimes in between commercial breaks or in between stories where I empathize with a mother who just maybe lost her kids to gun violence or something that may be prevalent in the Black community or the Latino community or immigrant community, and I can relate. It's very hard for me to separate sometimes, but I'm working on it and I'm working to get better on that. The quickest thing that people can say to not make you credible or to take you seriously is to see if your heart is on your sleeve too much, if you can't tell the story without bias. So what I've found is kind of a unique compromise. When there is a story that is controversial, when it does have to do with race, when it does have to do with politics, I'll sometimes tweet the story or put it out and say, here is the information. You can do with it as you will. If people want to start having dialogue with it, I'll do that. I'll say, well, in my opinion, or as a woman of color, or as this, or I've seen this before as a mentor, or I've seen lost kids who've gone down a wrong path, who simply need love, guidance, direction, and godliness, or whatever the case. I'll add that then. I'm welcome to your opinion. You're on my page commenting about an article or something else or something that might have been a proven report from, the State Department or top intelligence officials or whatever the case. Maybe I told somebody the other day, maybe you have a personal issue with race. I can't help that, but here is what this says. And so I try to think calmly, but not back down from the truth, if that makes sense. And so my truth is for a lot of people. My truth is for women. My truth is for people of color. My truth is for people who may not have a voice. And so I don't back down from it, but I make sure I always do it in a respectful way. Someone who may see me on social media will see sometimes that I do interact and respond to trolls. I never go after anybody else's page, ever. I don't have time for it, first of all. But I may respond to somebody gently and say, I respect where you're coming from. I hear you. But this is why I said this, and here are the facts to back that up. Next, and I think that's empathy. I think that's human compassion, and I think that's something that we need as journalists, to not be stone-faced and a robot and act like issues in the community aren't happening. They are on all sides. I have friends who are white, who feel like they're being demonized and considered racist when they're not. I've listened to them. I empathize and I hurt with them. So it's not just about a woman of color or people of color, it's not. I listen to all of those things and I try to take them into account, and then I just try to give the information as best I can. Married life is great. It's interesting. It hasn't even been a year yet, and it's something that we have to balance and juggle and make time for. Not in the sense that like it's a burden. It's great. I love TJ to death, but more so because I'm busy and he's busy, not just with our jobs and careers and passions, but even beyond that. You know, we have family, we want to travel. You know, TJ may have a studio session when I'm coming home from work and want to go to dinner or whatever. We just have to figure out a way to get on the same page. But, you know, my parents have been married for more than 30 years. And so that's what I believe it's supposed to be. That's the relationship and the dynamic that I believe God intended. And so I don't think that I can fully operate in the capacity that I can, and neither can TJ, unless we had that context of marriage like God designed, because I believe there's byproduct and fruit from doing it how you're supposed to. Unfortunately, I think that marriage gets a bad rap, and a lot of people think it's overrated, and they feel like being in the streets is where it's at. It's not. Because once you do that and you get old enough, you just, you know, turn out lonely and with regret, wishing you could take years back of foolishness, and it just doesn't make sense. So for me, marriage was an exciting time and something that I always imagined being able to do. I was single 6 years before I met TJ, so I didn't know when it was going to happen. I thought I was going to be an old maid, but it did, and it was worth it, and it's good. You know, communication is key. Communication is key. We have to communicate all the time so it doesn't lead to frustrations. Hey, I'm not going to be able to get by at lunch and take the puppy to go tinkle. He has a tiny little bladder. He's new. He has to be taken care of. I can't do it. Can you do it? Oh, well, dang, I got to go get my hair cut. Oh, I have to do this. You know, it's work. It's communication. And if you don't have that specific time set apart for date night or time to have dinner together, whatever that looks like as far as intimacy and getting a chance to really spend some quality time together, it can lead to chaos. It's important. It has to be done. And not only that, but if you marry your best friend and somebody you really like and not just getting married for crazy reasons and wrong reasons, it's fun. I honestly don't know anything that I would want to do without TJ. You know, every trip, every whatever, like, he's there. He's my guy. You know, we roll together, we rock together, and, you know, we bounce ideas off of each other and goals and passions and dreams. And so I feel like we're better together. It works.